Okay, we continue our journey into the Lasker Method, a manual to improve your chess. Very compact manual created by two authors in order to give you some ideas on how to improve in chess. Notice that thanks to your feedbacks, when I make videos, for example, before when I was putting the hand here, the camera would see it and try to focus it. So they told me, hey, try to stop the continuous focusing because it's annoying. This is the video that I try. Let me know if it works. So the feedback is also important. We are still on the chapter relative to the attack. So we attack. This is game 14. Genna Sosonko is white against Johannes Helsing in Mannheim 1975. Genna Sosonko is a very famous grandmaster. Why? Because he created all this series of books about the life in the former Soviet Union and portraits of the grandmaster and world champions he played against and he knew. So d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, c5. At this point we could think this is a Benoni, d5, d6, e4, e6, knight f3, knight e7, and maybe at this point is not really Benoni. So let's see what happens. Bishop e2, castle, and let me use also the other light. Let's see, maybe it's better. Castle, and e5. That's a very interesting move, right? Let's see what he says. A speciality of a German master, this Johannes Helsing, hoping for an improved King's Indian where he has knights on e7 and d7 in one go, saving two tempi on the usual knight g8, f6, d7 and knight b8, c6, e7. He loses one tempo with e6, e5, but overall is a tempo up. As well as the present game, he also beat no less a player than Polugaevsky with this idea. Okay, so that's interesting. a3, knight d7, b4, b6, rook b1, h6, knight b5, knight f6, knight d2, knight e8. As you can see, what is the manual really teaching us? Not about thinking, because they are throwing out this chunk of moves, right? But what we are learning are maneuvers. What were the typical maneuvers of these pieces, where these pieces land? Obviously, knight e8 means that he wants to play this, he wants to defend this. So they also give an idea of how to play some openings, and that's why we want to see these games fast without really going deep into them. Knight b3, f5, and here there is a diagram where it says the thematic battle has taken shape. White has something going on the queen side, obviously. Black must fight for chances on the king side. This is typical King's Indian, no? The good thing about such position is that when you crash through as black, it is the king that you slay. Yeah, so that's the point. On this side, if white wins, the idea is that there will be an overwhelming attack. The pawns will be too advanced at a certain point, black will have to give material, and the game is over, because once you have given a rook for stopping a pawn, what can you do? Instead, on this side, obviously the thing is you want to kill this guy, right? And the name of the game is checkmate. Okay, so let's continue with the game. B takes c5, b takes c5, so he was able to open the b file. Bishop d2, bishop d7, f3, a6. And now you see why it's important with knight that is keeping this. So Sonko might have been hoping for f4, but it would have been a kind of mistake instead of a6. Okay. When white can sacrifice. Wow, that's interesting. So let's see what happens. And here he should have put a diagram, because you want to show me a variation. Great. Why don't you put a diagram? I don't know why the authors don't understand that it's important. Knight takes d6, knight takes d6, knight takes c5, with a resulting pawn roller. Okay, this is what I told you, that is the game, no? Practically, at a certain point you bring your pawns too forward, he must give up something in order to stop them. On the other hand, he must be very fast on this side, but obviously here they show us that f4 wasn't fast enough, and so that's why this move is the right move for the position. Now white should have still probably taken and sacrificed. Unfortunately, in some position you need to be courageous enough. That's the thing of chess. At a certain point you need to have courage, and that courage means that you give a piece for 2 pawns, but then your attack pawns are starting to roll in any case. So this could have been a move now, okay? Instead he played knight c3. And once you play knight c3, things are not good for white. f4, knight c1. As you can see, this is all the problem. Now white is returning back. Not a good idea. Of course, it's a good idea in the sense that he wants to defend, but he admits that he has lost the initiative. He has lost the fight on the queen side. g5, queen b3, knight g6, knight d3, and h5. Now the comment is that probably this move was better, because as you can see there is not an attack on here, so like Lasker said, you need to bring all your forces on the side that you are attacking. So this move wasn't probably the best at the moment. Queen b6. Obviously you don't want to exchange, right? You are attacking. If you exchange, what are you doing? Queen f6, knight f2, queen e7, queen a5, rook a7, rook b8. And here there is knight h4. Things are clearly start to show up for black. h3, bishop h6. This is, as you can see, it's very important as a move, not only because I attack this, but for this point that attack the king or take away the king some squares, because the attack is nearly starting here. Rook f b1, throwing all his forces in his queenside attack. Meanwhile, deserting is kingside. Okay, let's see what happens. Knight f6. Rook 1, b7. So here obviously there was the rook takes f8 to consider, but they say they don't have any idea if it would have worked or not. Okay, so practically, because the point is this you take, no, and after you take back, there is bishop e1, where you are fighting and controlling the squares that for black will be important. I don't know. Obviously it could be a good idea. Also because maybe it would have hampered a little the attack on the king side. But let's see what happens. After rook 1 b7, there is rook takes b7, rook takes b7, and boom, g4. Sorry, I made a mistake. G4. That's interesting. Yeah. So, yeah. And now there are practically all these typical plans of attack where you sacrifice again on g2. So that's why you need to watch some games. F takes g4, knight takes g2, like I said. Here it says, after this move, the Australian master and didact CJS Purdy warned that tactics dominate the game and can come out of nowhere. By the way, Purdy was famous because he was a correspondence world champion in a time that there were no computers, and he wrote 3 books that are kind of very interesting. And so he says, Purdy warned that tactics dominate the game and can come out of nowhere, even in positionally lost situations. We believe it is a matter of formulation, because if there are correct tactics available, then by definition the position is not strategically lost. Lasker formulated this in a clear way when he mentioned a large superiority of forces in a quarter where the opponent has an important weakness. Okay, so let's see how it continues. G takes h5. Of course, here the point is what happens when you play this. And again, we would have needed a diagram, right, to show this point. f3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes d2, and black rules the board with this dark square bishop suddenly being a very active piece. Okay, and then notice that he has this line open, he will open this, so clearly there is a big attack here. But this is a very important piece because it prevents things from happening. So let's go back to the position and we see what was the result of this thing. Let's see, it was like this, right? And he played knight takes g2, but here white didn't take in g2, he played g takes h5, okay, and then now knight e3, queen c7, and queen g7 check. So black is arriving fourth in the attack. Notice that today, thanks to engine, we know that this move was probably the best, and then queen g7, but okay. what can you do? In a game you're not allowed to use engines, right? Knight g4, knight e takes e4, no. Knight e takes, but this is the knight f, so it's not the right knight. So this knight, the knight e, is taking g4, and how does it take back? Okay, so here, if he would have taken with this, there was f3 again. And that's interesting. So let's see what happens. Takes f3, bishop takes here, queen takes here, boom. And here there is a mating attack, he says. Yet this is kind of interesting. Okay, probably the mating attack is due to the fact that they calculated all of this with the computer, because obviously it seems that is kind of able to escape, or maybe not. No, because there is tack and tack once he gets that. Okay, so, well, let's go back and let's see what it was, right? There was a bishop on h6, tack, 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 and the bishop was on g4, I think. No. So it was a knight on g4. Probably. With a knight g4. G7. Okay, let me pause the video and put the position back. Okay, this was the position more or less. White plays knight g4, knight e takes g4, and the bishop take on g4. Oops, sorry, the bishop take on g4. Okay, and we saw how it takes back doesn't really work because there is a mating attack. At this point you should pause the video and find again the continuation that wins for for black. What does this mean? That the computer found an amazing move. Black played rook f7. That is not really the best possible. The best possible is the following. Can you believe it? f3. And after this, there is this. So, let's continue, right? Tack. Check. Now, if you go here, it's clearly a problem, right? Why? Because you can play something like this. You cannot go here, you need to go here. Again, and here the checkmate is near, right? Tack, tack, tack. He's trying desperately to escape. If he goes here, there is a checkmate right away. So he goes here, right? Check. Check. He cannot go here, but he would want because he can protect, so he has to go here. But unfortunately, this is checkmate, right? So this is the reason. Now, sometimes they should give a line that is a little longer, but as you can see, you need to figure it out because that is what will help you to improve. So let me pause a second and put the position back. Okay, so this was the position. In this position he played rook f7, that is not so good. The right move, amazingly, was f3. Believe it or not. That's kind of incredible. I mean, I can still not believe it, honestly. But it's really a beautiful move. In any case, rook f7, king f1, and here it says a time scramble adventure. No human in his right mind would consider queen takes d6. So again, the computer finds immediately this move that it seems it keeps or saves the position, or it's completely unclear, but in the game he played king f1. After king f1 we have knight takes g4, h takes g4, queen takes g4, and of course now the game is over, because as you can see black has a passed pawn, and these forces that are going to finish the attack. Let's see what happens. Rook b8, king h7, queen takes d6, rook g7, knight e2, queen g2, king e1, and now queen h1, and obviously white resigned here. Why did white resign? Again, try to do your homework here, pause the video and find the checkmate. Okay, it shouldn't be difficult. If you don't want to pause the video, here the result is obviously can only go here, and after there is check, it cannot go here, it cannot go on this side, it cannot go here, so it can only go here, right? And what does it do when you do this? Oops. Notice that it cannot go here because of this. So this beautiful move gives a checkmate. That's amazing. A discovery check by the rook. Okay, let's see what they say. In this type of game, the opponents attack on opposite sides, which sharpens the game to a considerable extent. As we can see, in fact, the King's Indian is a kind of sharp opening. Who is forced to secure his large superiority in force? Therefore, any inaccuracy can often be fatal, and the players should realize what they involve themselves in. But, for the reasons explained above, the practical chances in such positions tend to lie with the player who is attacking the king, since his attack, if it breaks through, will end in mate, and so the price or an error is much greater for his opponent. Okay, so this was a beautiful game played between Gunnar Sosonko and this German master called Johannes Helsing in 1975. I hope you will enjoy more games from this book. Like I said, there are 73 games, and now I will show you another game from the chapter on the attack.